And isn't that the case? I mean, I have had people tell me personally that when they see Christians, maybe they'll come to church. Why should they go to church? I've had people tell me this. Why should I go to church? I'm a good person. I don't steal. I don't drink. I don't smoke.
Yeah.
I don't cheat on my taxes. And why should I go to church and pay this tithe and offering like this club? I'm going to go to church and pay my money out. I don't get paid back for anything when I see nothing but hypocrites in the church. Of course, that's not a good excuse. But you and I, everyone that is watching, we should have the power of example. And Nadab and Abihu was far from that example.
You know, something else that goes on that we want to touch on here is that when Nadab and Abihu were basically killed there in the presence of the Lord, it says the fire of the Lord went out and devoured them. And of course, God then says that the reason was because, in essence, they didn't come before him and regard him as holy, which we need to touch on. But then God told Aaron not to mourn. In verse 6 it says, Moses said to Aaron and Eleazar and Ithamar his sons, these are the brothers of Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar, do not uncover your heads nor tear your clothes lest you die. Now this was something that they would do in mourning. You would tear your clothes. You know, here your two of your sons have just died. Or your brothers have just died. And God says, I don't want you to mourn. I don't want you any appearance of mourning. Because God knew that it would make the people sympathize with the offenders as though God did something wrong.
Yes.
And he was trying to maintain the holiness. Now, this isn't just because God's an egomaniac.
Right.
But the point is that God knows the devil's constantly trying to diminish God's holiness in our eyes, because when we cease to view God as holy, that's where the devil snares us and leads us into those paths that will ultimately lead to our ruin. In the particular case here, somebody may ask, well, if these guys knew better, then why did they go ahead and offer this strange fire? And what caused the problem? Well, you come to verse 8, and it says, and the Lord spoke to Aaron, saying, now it doesn't say it directly about Nadab and Abihu, but it's right after this judgment. So the implication is very clear here what was happening. The Lord spoke to Aaron, saying, do not drink wine or intoxicating drink, you nor your sons with you, when you go into the tabernacle of meeting, lest you die. Evidently, that's what had happened. They'd been drinking, and it confused their judgment. If you look at the next part there in the next sentence, it shall be a statute forever throughout your generations, that you may distinguish between holy and unholy, between unclean and clean, and that you may teach the children of Israel all the statutes which the Lord has spoken to them by the hand of Moses.
When you're drinking, you think that you're under control.
Oh, yeah.
You really do. And some guy, a good friend of mine, when we drank years and years ago, it's been a long time ago, but he used to say, let's go drink and get stupid and lay in a pile. He was really saying the truth, and I never quite understood that until I really quit drinking, that you think you've got it under control, but you just get less smart, you know. Maybe, is there such a word as stupider? But you just get less smart. I was at a New Year's Eve party, and my wife and I, and we got there late. People want to hurry up and drink, you know. They want to bring in the new year. It's like, why would I want to bring in the new year drinking? To forget all my troubles? But, you know, you bring in this new year
so you can start out the new year with a hangover.
With a hangover. I mean, that's not a good way to start the new year.
Not
and
at
so
all.
We got there, and it was late. And I'll never forget this as long as it's been years. I'll never forget this, that the people had already been a couple hours there. You know, and they probably started at 9. I might have got there at 11. I don't remember. We were just going to go there and visit some of our friends. And they were laughing and joking. They came up to me and were saying things, and they were just laughing, and I couldn't laugh. I couldn't laugh because it wasn't funny. I was completely sober. And they were they'd say, oh, do I, you know, everything was funny, and it was just, in my mind, it was like, this is stupid. And then, you know what I did, though? Instead of walking out, I went ahead and thought, well, I got to catch up. So, you know, after, you know, they call it
that was stupid.
That was stupid, that's right. And so I hurried up and drank a bunch. So, and then pretty soon everything was funny. And it said, and it talks about that in Proverbs, by the way. But anyways, here, I want to underline, in fact,
wine is a mocker in Proverbs 20.
Wine's a mocker.
Suddenly things become funny that shouldn't be funny.
There's no seriousness.
Or less important.
Less important. And this right here, in verse 9, it says, then the Lord spoke to Aaron, saying, do not drink wine or intoxicating drink, you nor your sons with you when you go into the tabernacle. In other words, you need to have your faculties all together, because it makes a difference. And anyways, anyone that don't have these pencils, these are tremendous. But if you got your marker, underline that, verse 9, where it says, "Do not drink wine." You can see mine. I'm underlining or intoxicating drink.
You can get that
color.
from Remnant, right?
You can get that from Remnant, right? That's right. Do you have one, Mark? You better get one.
I need to get one.
But I love marking my Bible up because I've got now wine. I've got an orange and intoxicating drink and underlined it in blue because when I want to come back to here, I can find that very quickly. But that's part of studying the Bible. But I also want to read another statement here in the study Bible. It's got under the book Patriarchs and Prophets.
Yeah.
Page 361 and 362. It's right in the study Bible. It says here, Nadab and Abihu would never have committed that fatal sin had they not first become partially intoxicated by the free use of wine. You notice it said the free use of wine.
Yeah.
In other words, it says they understood that the most careful and solemn preparation was necessary before presenting themselves in the sanctuary where the divine presence was manifested. But by intemperance, they were disqualified for their holy office. Their minds became confused and their moral perceptions dulled so that they could not discern the difference between the sacred
That's right.
and the common. And the thing of it is that God is particular. He has a certain way of doing things, and God hasn't changed since the Old Testament. I mean,
That's right.
Let's go to the New Testament real quick with the offering of
Well, the Bible
Ananias and
says,
Sapphira.
Malachi 3, verse, 6, I am the Lord, I do not change.
I do not change.
New Testament, for Hebrews chapter 13, verse, 5, it says that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Yeah. And God was with Ananias and Sapphira.
So Old and New Testament.
Old and New Testament. They could have offered anything, but they lied. And guess what happened? Because the fledgling church was growing, both those folks died. And sometimes we don't see that today, but it's vitally important.
Well, something that I think we need to tie in here, and just briefly, is in the New Testament, at the end of time, you have a church, you have a system called Babylon.
Okay.
And in this false religious system is getting the nations drunk with their wine. Well, this isn't the wine of alcoholic
Right.
wine, but it's false teachings.
Yes.
And in the same way, what the Bible's telling us is in the very last days, people's judgment is going to be confused by false teachings, so that
That's it.
in the religious world, there will be a downplaying of holy things and sacred things, and people
Which we see right now. I mean, it's rampant around the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, churches have become, to me, unholy. They want to entertain ourselves. But I say this, when people get entertained and they can feel good while they're at church because it's emotional, when they go home they can still slap their wife around and their kids around. Because why? Because they have not allowed the difference between sacred and holy.
Yeah, and they'll go to the Bible and say, well, I know what God says here, but I don't think he really means that.
Well, I'd be
because
afraid
they
of
don't
that.
know the difference between the sacred and the common.
That's right. Well, time is almost out again. Man, we hardly got this started. But I think hopefully you've understood the great principle here. Before we take our break, think about this during this break, is that there is a difference between right and wrong. Always, all through the scriptures, Old and New Testament. God is a holy God, and he's calling us up to come up to a higher standard. 1 Peter 2:9, he's calling us to be a peculiar people, a special people, that we would live that example, that other people could see us and say, wow, they're
That's right.
different. They dress different. They talk
royal
different.
priesthood, just like they were
priesthood.
priests.
Absolutely. And so I pray that that's your situation. And we've got a few things to say when we come back, so don't go away. But we will be right back.
God's church has always had a messenger, a powerful voice that convicts hearts, guides minds, and draws his people to a closer relationship with Jesus Christ. You know their names: Noah, the ark builder; Moses, the lawgiver; Daniel, the prophet; Paul, the apostle; John, the revelator. But what about today? Does God have a messenger for his people now? Who can his people turn to when fearful events transpire in the world? Now you can discover a last-day revelation of how God has led in the past, how he is leading today, and how he will lead you into eternity. Remnant Publications presents The Testimonies, all 9 volumes on audiobook.
Men looked at the lofty and supposedly fireproof buildings and said, they are perfectly safe. But these buildings were consumed as if made of pitch. The fire engines could do nothing to stay the destruction. I saw the fruit of the tree of life, the manna, almonds, figs, pomegranates, grapes, and many other kinds of fruit. I asked Jesus to let me eat of the fruit. He said, "Not now. Those who eat of the fruit of this land go back to earth no more. But in a little while, if faithful, you shall both eat of the fruit of the tree of life and drink of the water of the fountain."
You can have all this in your daily devotions to prepare you and your family for the second coming and to share with friends in need. Take it with you as you walk in nature or even while in your car. Be refreshed, be restored, be inspired, be equipped to face the future with God's powerful message of faith and hope for today.
I appreciate the Remnant Bible, Study Bible. I own one, and I recommend it to others. I like the Ellen White comments on it. I like the way it's laid out, and the illustrations in the back are especially good, and the reference text.
It is powerful because it's like having the conflict set with you. In the back, there's an amazing study guide with all kinds of pictures that you can see as well. Makes the Bible come alive. I'd recommend this to everybody. You got to have it in your study. And again, if you want to make the Spirit of Prophecy and the Bible come together in a combination, there's nothing in the world like this Bible. You got to get one.
Now the decision is in your hands. Will you accept the challenge to become part of God's last day army? Equip yourself today.
Well, I'm glad that you're back with us. We only have about a minute left, but I do want to clarify one thing. You mentioned that text was Hebrews. What now?
Yeah, it was 13:8, not 13:5. It says that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
And forever. So he doesn't change.
That's right.
He doesn't change. And one little statement here I'd like to read again. It's out of the Study Bible, page 3, Patriarchs and Prophets, page 360. It says, "God designed to teach the people that they must approach him with reverence and awe and in his own appointed manner. It cannot accept partial obedience." In other words,
That's right.
It's God's appointed manner. You know, in the very end, we're going to be judged according to God.
That's right.
And his laws. It's not up to us to make our own laws and to judge ourselves. It's appointed for him to do that.
Or to pick or choose.
Pick or choose. And so don't make the excuse that it's okay. Find out what God is saying. Read the story about Nahab and Abihu and find out that God is a particular God. Because why? Because he loves you so much. And until next time, remember, you can have a better way of life. So what? Don't put it off.
By working together, 1.7 million copies of The Passion of Love were distributed around the country, resulting in an unprecedented partnership with Walmart that led to over 1,000 Bible studies. By working together, over 6 million copies of the 10 Commandments twice removed were shared around the world, resulting in more than 20 churches now keeping the Bible Sabbath. By working together, we have shipped almost 1 million Bibles to spiritually thirsty Christians in Africa, touching the lives of 20 million people for Christ. Working together is what allows Remnant Publications to spread truth-filled books around the world to hasten the Lord's coming. Will you join us in that mission? Will you help us reach the world for Jesus, one book at a time?